doing? You're wearing my favorite sweater.
All right, this is a new one.
Oh, is it?
I'm always like, my knitwear season has begun.
That's why I'm wearing short sleeves, because I'm like milking the last moments of summer before it's sweater weather.
Yeah, I know. It's begun.
Well, congratulations on your new sweater. I know you have a lot of good like marled wool pieces.
I do.
I feel like I've seen them.
I do indeed.
I love that. I'd be envious, but I know it's coming, and then I'll just be in wool for the next 8 months.
Yeah, you'll bloody need it out there, don't you?
Yeah, we don't have fall here. We have summer and winter.
Yeah. That's weird, isn't it? So are you out in the sage?
I am out in the sage. It's so nice when it starts to flower, and it's so like fluffy and pretty, like pussy willows, but like bigger.
God, you're lucky. I love that place.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky too. You live in a beautiful place.
I do live in a beautiful place. I really do.
Are you in Devon proper?
Yep, I'm in Devon. Yeah, you can kind of see out my window now because I've moved my my stained glass.
Yes, you did.
And yeah, so you can see even a bit of background. Night is going to be falling as we do this.
Oh, that's exciting. Devon's the only place I've ever been in England.
Is it?
Yeah, I like passed through London on my way there, but that's where I spent time. There was this really cute, like old hardware store with like the best antique, like screwdrivers and hinges. And I never wanted to leave.
I know, Devon's pretty magical. It's a magical place. I love it. Full of like wild rivers and, you know, the moors. My favorite place in the world is Dartmoor.
What makes that your favorite?
It's lovely. It's wild and it's kind of ancient. You've got these ancient rock formations and these beautiful river valleys with mossy old oak trees, and it's pretty, you know, there's no one there really. So it's just lovely. You know,
that's nice.
you can get away from the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hi.
How are you, anyway?
So nice to see you. I'm great.
I know. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy that we get to drop in. I've been like in that obsessive book writing place where nothing else exists. And then Thursday morning, I realized I finished it. You know, when you're like sprinting so hard and you don't even realize.
Oh, well done. What's the book?
Thank you. It's so I'm curious on your take. I'm calling it The Language of Betterarchy.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds good. I like it.
I wasn't finding any examples of large scale implementation of heterarchy. And I know the last time you and I talked was helping me kind of flesh it all out. And then synarchy has been so weaponized by so many different fascist regimes. Did you know that?
Yeah. In the past. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to give it a new rebirth.
I appreciate that. And I totally support you in that. And I spent a couple months with like all these Latin prefix, suffix dictionaries. I'm like, I'm going to create a whole new word. And then I was just like, all right, this book needs to be written. So it's just called Betterarchy.
I love it. That's great. Really good. Really good.
Thank you. What about you? Are you writing right now?
Not so much. Well, I kind of am. I've written this book of all the lines of the I Ching. I haven't written it yet, but it's, you know, I've written it over the last couple of years, and I wrote a sutra each morning before dawn for each of the lines. And I'm now sort of starting to write commentaries on them, and little bits of, you know, stuff to go with it. And it's going to be a big tome. But it's not going to be ready for a couple of years at least, because I'm not hurrying it, and it's a very contemplative process, and it got to all then be put together, and I'm handwriting it as well, so it's like yeah. Is that a departure for you, or do you often handwrite? No, normally when I'm writing my books, I do them on the computer, but these, because they're poetic and they're, you know, the main sutras are like, they're 4 lines. With a heading, but I'm going to handwrite them. I've handwritten them already. I haven't got my book here with me, but they're like rough diamonds. You know, it's like a big old leather book that someone gave me, and I just filled it with these sutras over the last few years, and they're quite fun. they're very mysterious, and yeah, so I'm it's fun. It's like my I Ching, I guess.
I love, what
not,
a beautiful morning practice.
yeah. So I'm
I like
writing that kind of, and I'm doing a little booklet thing on the master numbers at the moment, 11, 22, 33, 44, 55, in the gene keys anyway. And that's going to make a little mini course out of it, because they're quite fun. And yeah.
I love that. I just did a talk in Santa Fe a couple weeks ago. Rosie was there, actually. And I brought in the 55 because the zip code in Santa Fe is 505.
Oh.
So I was attuning everyone to, like, please know that we are resonating at the acidic and gift frequencies of freedom here. So not to worry, we're all good.
Love it. And have you had a chance? You haven't done something, you had a chance to look at the Dream Ark then?
No, not yet, because I've jumped into the guides program and I've been so enraptured, but I'm very excited to jump into the Dream Ark. How did this come to pass? Can you give us the origin? Yeah. It's so exciting. It's the latest, right? It's
the latest. Yeah. It's yeah, well, it was as you know, Rosie and I started, I asked her about 7 years ago, actually. I said, do you want to do the Dream Ark with me, which are like all the animal totems, gene keys converted into animals and birds and things. And because of her amazing work on the wisdom keepers, I kind of needed a really good artist. And but with Rosie, I got way more than that, because we started off like, yes, I'll do the art, but then it grew into like this incredible collaboration that then took 3 years to make this online program, that's a lot more than just a program. It's turned into a whole methodology in a way. And so and then more and more contributors came, and more wisdom came, and then we started to reach out to indigenous elders, because we thought we need to get some indigenous voices in here, and we need to get artists and storytellers and poets and musicians. And so it just started to fill up with a village of like kind of natural wisdom, and particularly based around animals and birds and stories and tales of myths and creatures and how they impact us in our lives. So it's just and there's loads and loads and loads of videos and lots of little things in there. It's an incredible program. I mean, yeah, I've never done anything like it, never seen anything like it,
And the Gene Keys is so uniquely collaborative, even though initially it came through you. And I believe it took you 7 years to write the book. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's a long time in an isolated experience with the keys. And now it seems like you're opening up to more and more collaboration. So what is that process like? Like when you and Rosie are collaborating on the Dream Ark, do both of you have the same realization, oh, this animal corresponds to this key? Like what is that process like?
Well, I also should mention Sally Middleton, because she's also been part of our team, and Elijah Parker as well, who did who actually built it online. And so, when you come into the program, you meet the four of us, and we have different sort of roles in the program. And it's more like I sort of would do the downloady bit, the sort of transmissions, and then Rosie would go. It was like, okay, let's make that practical. let's put that into someone's life and figure out how they can interact with it, and how it actually can go into their life, not just as this incredible concept, but as like, wow, an invitation or a journey or a process or something that they actually do to embody it. So the program, more than any other thing I've ever done, is filled with living embodied invitations and kind of living stories, because it's all about living and stretching into the dream realms and opening up your right brain and your trusting your intuition in really powerful ways.
Mhm.
So
Can you give
yeah,
us an example of some of the
yeah,
practical exercises?
yeah, sure. Let's just think of one. Well, recently I did, because in the Dream Ark, it's made up of these 192 creatures, birds and mammals and underworld creatures.
And did
And
you tap into that structure initially?
yeah, and it's very loose, so we hold it loosely because we go, look, there's creatures that aren't in here, and but they are all in here, really. You have to fit them in. It's that, in that way, it's collaborative.
Right.
And there's also no rules. In fact, that Rosie said just today, like, the only rule is if you find a rule, break it. So,
It's my kind of
so
rule.
yeah. And so but what we did is, with all these creatures, I kind of intuitively placed them. I came up with these categories, 12 categories: hunters, healers, unifiers, tricksters, laughers, leapers, messengers, those kind of things. There's 12 of them.
And do those correspond to the families? I'm
No,
blanking on the name.
they're quite random.
Okay.
So in
Cool.
leapers, you might find, yes, you will find a flea, for example, and a kangaroo, but you might also find, if I'm right, a slug, which isn't you wouldn't think, so there are things like that. But if you go deep into the mythology or the kind of wisdom of each creature, you'll see that there's a reason it's in that category. But then the categories also cross over each other, so animals are really in all of them in some respect. So it's that's a sort of framework. But a practical example is, right now, because I'm in the course right now, having created it, Rosie and I put all this in, but we'd never done it. So then once we finished it, we were like, right, I'm beginning it now.
Right.
And so I've been in it because we launched it, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. I've been in it for that long, and I'm in now a category called the hunters. And I was in the first category was in the messengers for me.
Okay.
And I was sort of in there for a while, and I got certain messages that were very helpful in my life. And that's what the Dream Ark is. It's not adding anything to your life in terms of it's showing underneath the wisdom to help you live a better life or a richer life, or so it's sort of already tapped into what's going on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I'm in that category, and I there's lots of little funky ways of you attaching yourself to a creature. It might come to you for a dream. It might be that you find one in real life, so it comes to you in your garden, or you meet it somewhere, or it comes to you all kinds of ways. So but we also put in lots of little gadgets and things in the program. So the way of choosing the messengers, for example, is if you don't know which one you're drawn to, there's online there's a little kind of spindle that spins round, and each one of it has a sound of one of the messengers. So it's the sound it makes. And so they're on a loop. So you press play, and you hear all these sounds, and you're kind of like, yeah, that's a bird. Oh, I don't know what that is. Maybe I don't know what that is, and then you're hearing all these sounds, and there's about 18 of them.
Okay.
And then the idea is that you keep listening to them until your mind sort of lets go of trying to understand what they are. And then one of them will come to you. One of them on the loop will just go, that one, I don't know why. I want that one. I want that. And so you pick that one, and then you pick it, and then you press the button, and it tells you what it is.
Okay.
What that creature is. So I got the bluebird, right?
Okay.
Which I have no relationship to, because we don't have bluebirds over here.
Oh.
But the bluebird corresponds with gene key 31, if you're into gene keys. With the Dream Ark, you don't need. Yeah, but I know you are. But the Dream Ark doesn't require that you know anything about gene keys.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So because in order to understand the bluebird, I've rewritten the gene keys, but in animal form. So there's a whole book, that's written into the course. So it talks to you about the vision of leadership. All the birds are visions, and this is about the vision of humble leadership. And so anyway, as I was doing that, I clicked on one of Rosie's invitations, because the course is, the program's set out it's really for the right brain.
Mhm.
So instead of, you don't really know where you're going, but you're asked to click symbols that you're drawn to. So there's lots and lots of symbols. So you go, I'm going to click that one. And then it opens up an invitation, and or a kind of some little wormhole. And there's always a little something special in there. And often it's Rosie giving an invitation, is what this one was.
Mhm.
And she said, do something with your hands, connected to your messenger. It was a longer invitation than that. Anyway, so it's about trusting your intuition. So
Mhm.
I had that thought in me, and I had this thought of leadership and this bluebird. And then I just lived my life. And then a couple of days later, in my village where I live, I bumped into the village potter, and I was chatting to him, and I said, can you help me make a bluebird? And because she said, do something that you've never done before,
Mhm.
and so I'd never made anything with clay properly, made some things once, twice. And he said, yeah, absolutely. So like a couple of days ago, it took like some time before we actually got it together. But anyway, so I molded this shape of a bluebird. It's sort of, out of clay, and just shaped it. It was just a couple of days ago. And then it's sitting there drying, and then we're going to fire it. And I said, I want it to be blue and gold and flecks. And we had a long discussion about how to do it. And so it's an alchemical thing that I'm involved in. I put in all my intentions and my dreams of, leadership and the things that the issues and the challenges that come up, and how I'd like to heal them, and all of that stuff. I put it into this little alchemical process. So that's an example
Wow.
of many examples of how magical the Dream Ark is, and how sort of engaging it is.
It sounds like quite a feat. Like, I'm just thinking of the task of making the sounds for each animal, and then creating this, like, wow.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, there's a dog in there that picks a card for you, like there's we have an oracle dog, and it's just unbelievable what's in there.
How was the dog chosen as the oracle, or does that
Well, it's
relate?
one of many oracles. There's
Oh, okay.
loads of oracles in there, and so they're all different. But the dog is just one of my favorites, because Rosie's got all her cards lying out on the ground, and then Luna, the dog, just puts her paw out and picks one, and then the person turns it over. And so, but she's done that with all the different cards, so it's just been recorded. So you can click it, and Luna randomly picks you a card.
That's so sweet.
It's
So
very
now
cute.
that you're actually doing the Dream Ark as a student, what are you learning? Like, what new portals and illuminations are opening up for you?
Yeah, well, it's a couple of things. Like, one is, I feel like a child again.
Mhm.
So it's like bringing out the child in me, like just playing with clay and doing things that adults often forget to do.
Right.
Things that don't really have a sort of a purpose beyond just the doing. So I'm more I'm learning to be more playful, and a bit sort of wilder in some respect. Like, the little boy in me is more engaged.
Mhm.
And then my intuition, like, because a lot of there's lots of things, your intuition, you're really asked to kind of listen to fine tune your intuition,
Mhm.
like to a real pitch, and then your imagination, so it engages the power of the imagination, and as a way of deepening your connection to life and the mythology of your life. So that's really, enhanced. I already have quite an active imagination, but it's like really enhanced for me. But it's also, it's helping me with my actual life, so it's the challenges that are in front of me right now, because everyone has challenges all the time, right? But the ones that are in front of me right now are really helped by the Dream Ark. Like, for instance, my animal at the moment is not the blue. I've moved on from the bluebird. It's the lynx.
Okay.
And the lynx, for me, is about it's that impeccability, right? So it's that absolute kind of super awareness of where you place each paw when you're hunting. You know, lynx is one of the most silent hunters in existence.
Okay.
Like a lynx can hunt a cat and kill it, you know, a domestic
That's
cat.
impressive.
Yeah, and
'Cause cats are aware.
super alert. And
Right.
lynx is one of the only creatures that can come up quietly on a cat, and they're totally silent. And it's the precision with which it places its paws and how it waits, and it's like, and anyway, that for me is exactly what I need at the moment, because I'm dealing with some quite sensitive dynamics and issues, and I'm in other people, and I'm having to tread super carefully, with super awareness, and careful of the things I say and how I say it and the words I choose, and that level of kind of alertness to, you know, traumatic patterns that are hidden in the field, and how to sort of, you know, not awaken them.
Yeah.
You know, how to bypass them.
That's super valuable.
That's like a whole thing I'm learning at the moment, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
And does it also, because I know you said it's not the gene keys, one doesn't need to be familiar with the gene keys, but does it offer a form of synthesis with the gene keys, given that the gene keys is such a left-brained endeavor?
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, if you know the gene keys, it's wonderful, because it gives you a completely different approach. So many people have been working with the gene keys and working with their profiles and things like that. You come into the Dream Ark and there's no profile, you know, it's like I described it, it's like the gene keys is like this neatly clipped garden of magical delights, and you come around a path and there's this beautiful vista that's been created, and you can go and explore it, and you can go through the labyrinth. But the Dream Ark is like going into the jungle. There's no paths. There's only like wild paths created by creatures, and you don't know what they are, and they peter out and they don't lead anywhere. And so all you have is your intuition. So even if you did the course 10 times, which by the way would probably take you 10 years, it's a big program. I mean, it's big. It's as big as the whole Golden Path. It's that big.
Wow.
You know, you would have 10 completely different journeys, because you're not choosing, the path isn't you're choosing, your intuition is choosing your path through. So there's no order. You know, only the very first module, well, there's introduction stuff, and then the first category is called the Guardians. Okay. And that one you're recommended to do first, you know, because the Guardian sets up your whole process. So you're asked to pick one of 12 guardians, you know, as your creature that will kind of set the tone of your entire journey, right? So mine was the crocodile.
Oh, sorry.
Crocodile.
Crocodile.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've told the story of how the crocodile came to me, but it was weird, you know. I haven't got it. I
haven't heard this one before.
No, but I just very briefly, because I've told it. I didn't know which to choose, and you know, I was looking at them and I just go, none of those are kind of doing it for me. Maybe I'll have to go off road. And anyway, so I went out one day. I was in the US at that time. I had COVID. I was recovering from COVID, and I just thought this is a perfect time for me to kind of start the Dream Ark properly. I was in a wild, lovely place, and I went out for this long walk. And before I went, I just said, okay, I've had enough of trying to decide. I'm going out for a walk, and when I come back, I'm coming back knowing my guardian. That's all. That's that. I made that decision. And so I went out on this long walk, and then I sort of got tired because I was recovering from COVID. And then I sort of stopped at this rock in the wilderness, and I was just resting. And I thought, this is as far as I'm going. And I looked down at my feet, and I was just sort of looking at my environment, and there was this amazing old root on the ground, like beautiful, like gnarled old root. And I picked it up and I was looking at it going, wow, that's incredible. And I started turning it over, and I was like, oh my God, it's a crocodile. It looked exactly, and I've got it on I've shown it on the videos and stuff. It's the head of a crocodile.
Whoa.
And even its kind of texture, and it's, you know how the crocodile has those kind of, you know, it has those nuances that are built into it, and it just feels like a crocodile. And it's the same shape. And I was like, oh my God, crocodile, I'm the crocodile. And I was like, oh really, do I want a fear key for the whole journey? You know, and it's related to Gene Key 60, you know, which is pretty intense, you know.
It's my life's work.
Yeah, you know what that's like, right? It's
That is a dense key.
It's dealing with structure and limitation and the form and, you know, hierarchy and all the things that you love, and those subjects of like justice and injustice and like, oh my, and I was like, oh really, I'm gonna have that. And but you know, the amazing thing is that that's exactly what I've got, you know. That's what those are the main themes of my life this year.
And can you translate that practically, like how the crocodile translates to the themes that you're dealing with this year?
Yeah, well, in a way, the crocodile, you know, because if you read the crocodile, it talks about, you know, in the bit I've written about it, it says the crocodile is all about the jaws, obviously, right?
Right.
And the jaws are the jaws of fate, right? And so they can snap shut at any point.
Right.
And so there's this incredible fear of like this.
Is it now? Is it now? Is it now?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, the form, the structure is going to kind of kill you. It's going to throttle your life force. Something, whether it's red tape or whether it's the tax man or whether it's whatever it is, it's something is going to it might even be a very heavy relationship, karmic relationship that you can't seem to shake, you know. And it could be many things. It could be something in your body. It could be the form in your body. It could be a tumor. It could be, you know, it's something that's like on your shoulder, you know, that's like, and it's how you go into that and transform that, you know, with, you know, as much kind of courage and kindness and, you know, as you can, and humanity as you can muster. And that's the journey of the crocodile. And it's also about trust. You know, one of the little stories about the crocodile is that one of the few things that is in symbiosis with it are those little birds. I can't remember what they're called, and they clean out its teeth.
Yeah. And
there's this beautiful, you know, you see it a lot, these crocodiles with their teeth open, and then the birds going in and pick, and you know, and it's and they really support each other. There's a kind of, you can almost feel like there's a kindness or a gratitude between them,
right?
And it's so sweet. So even though it looks really fearsome and it's terrifying, there's a gentle side to it as well, and I think that's really worth remembering, you know. Anyway, so yeah, it's sort of it's a big story, and then the creatures come when they come, and they, you know, they also, I guess I should talk about dreams, but maybe I'll give you a break.
Okay, well, I do definitely want to talk about dreams as you were talking, because I've been, you know, I have the 60 twice, which is irrelevant because we all have all the keys, and you know,
it's not entirely relevant,
right? I spent quite a bit of time contemplating the 60, and as you tied it into the crocodile, I was remembering that crocodiles, all their strength is in the closing, but there's actually not that much strength or power in the opening.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right? Like it's all, they'll sit with their jaw open and wait, but as far as opening fast, they don't actually have that muscle. So I often think in terms of like what's going on with the world and the larger structures, and just reminding myself, well, they need to use all these tricks and lies and collusion because they're not really that powerful. You know, so that's what I was getting from the crocodile.
Yeah, I love that. That's really, really true. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still relinquishing the tendency to put my teachers on pedestals of perfection. So it's validating to me that you would connect with the key and be like, oh, I don't want to. Because in my mind, I just feel like, oh, you must have mastered all of that.
You should come and spend a couple of days with me.
It's not the case.
Ask my wife. No, I mean, just a normal person. I'm, fallible and vulnerable, just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and life, whoever you are, life throws you massive challenges from time to time. And I happen to be doing the Dream Ark course while I'm in that phase of big initiation, I guess you'd call it,
Oh,
at many
wow.
levels, which I'm not going to go into it because it's some of it's personal and some of it's, so it doesn't really matter what it is because we've all got our things and we don't need to share them publicly. But we know what they are, and we could talk about them at a sort of archetypal level, a mythic level, and still be vulnerable and still be open and honest. But yeah, I'm like, the 60 has always been a key that kind of scared me. As so it well.
I know it super well. And because I was reading it and then you came out with the audios, I think after I had already familiarized with myself. And there's this one line where no one knows the experience of being stuck like someone with the 60th. And there are moments where I'm like, well, it makes sense on some dimension, but there's definitely a density to that key.
And it's really interesting when you go into the creatures of the keys, because they elucidate and illuminate the gene key in a right brain way, that's really interesting when you contemplate them. So the crocodile is one, and you can look at mythology as well and see the crocodile gods and from Egypt and those things. And it's a goddess, actually, it's a goddess thing, the crocodile. And then the hippopotamus is the mammal that's associated. And again, that's kind of similar in a way that they're both like these water dwellers. I don't know why that came that way.
That's true.
But the hippo is like it gives you shows you how incredibly fertile that 60 is, and incredibly creative. Because the hippo is the great fertilizer of the rivers. It eats a huge amount of grass at night, and then it goes in the day, and then it shits out all that stuff, and it pours shit into the river. And it's got that little spinny funny tail, and that tail spins in a spiral, and as it's shitting, all the shit just gets, like a muck spreader, gets spread all over the river, vast amounts of it, and it actually fertilizes hundreds and thousands of creatures. So hippos in the river keep the rivers really fecund and alive, and full of like nutrients and sort of those those incredible nutrients that kind of many creatures live off. So they're like, it's fearsome as well, but it has that it's one of the most dangerous African creatures, for example. But yeah, they're incredible. And then
I'm sorry, but that makes sense about the hippo, because it wasn't until I did, I think it was the activation sequence that we did as a group in 2020, and those doing these things in a group has been so helpful for me. And we got a call together with everyone who was working with the 60th, and that's when I understood it as like this meta structure, this like kind of behind the scenes grid that we're kind of alchemically tracking and feeling into. So that makes sense in terms of the hippo being responsible for this whole ecosystem with such a seemingly base action as pooping.
Yeah, I know. And then the bird is the cuckoo, and so that's got a whole amazing mythology that you got to like try and really try and understand.
Do you know the song "The Cuckoo" by Anne Briggs?
No.
I think you would love that.
Right.
I will send it to you later today, but it's odd that you mentioned that, because it got stuck in my head last night and I was listening to The Cuckoo.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful, like Irish old folk song. Yeah, it's very sweet.
And that's a unique bird among birds. It has a behavior that is not repeated anywhere else in the bird world.
Right.
The laying its eggs in a specific, in the willow warbler's nest, which is a tiny bird. So it'll lay its eggs in there and then disappear. And then the other bird brings up its child, obviously its little cuckoo.
Is this
And
considered a trickster animal in the Dream Ark?
that's a good question. I'm not sure what it lives in. I don't think it is a trickster, because because then what it does when it comes out, it pushes the other ones out of the nest, doesn't it? So it pushes the other birds' eggs or the other chicks out of the nest and kills them. So it then is the only bird, and so it gets all the food because it's a much bigger bird and pretty greedy.
Right.
And so this little this little willow warbler recognizes it as a child and feeds it and brings it up, and that's
So its life is deceptive from the get-go.
Yeah. And there's also that element of justice, injustice, fate, karma, like that that's nature,
Right.
kind of. But and then we have that whole thing about being cuckolded, and like someone betraying you with someone's wife or someone's husband, and that there's this justice, injustice, this vision of like there's something wider at work than we can understand.
That's really
it's very mysterious.
It's so mysterious. I mean, and it's also bizarre that the 60 being so dense and kind of matrix laden is also so much magic. It's like the key to magic.
It is.
Yeah, which is just such a great paradox. And as you're saying this, it's just kind of, I'm looking at, as always, at what's going on in culture and all these, epic machinations to try to make things fair and equal and safe for everyone. And then just hearing about the cuckoo, it's like, but that's not how nature works. Nature's so unfair and so brutal.
Yeah, it is. Although nature also has a natural inherent balancing, thing, so it's built in are these layers of karma. Karma is a very nuanced kind of principle to think about. It's like we kind of look at it and think, well, if I do something nice will happen to me, or vice versa. It's like that's such a kind of simplistic way of thinking about it. It has so many layers of nuance to it, like even right up to the how it operates in natural systems, how it operates in human emotions, how it operates throughout history, how it operates a big cyclical beyond a single lifetime. It's a very, very subtle set of truths. Aurobindo was an amazing person that went into that subject in incredible detail, all its nuance, and something else. So it's like the 60 contains all of that information and wisdom and depth. And so deep contemplation and embodied understanding is required to unlock it, as you well know.
Yeah, I could spend a lifetime on just the 60.
Yeah. And it has those weird stories of the, of the city, of the kind of reality collapsing.
It's like, is it spatial? Is it like people with this 60th city have a different relationship to sort of time, space, laws of nature, gravity, that
I think it's about reality.
Yeah.
It's like it's the kind of quivering of reality, like what we take as real is, the 60 shows us it isn't.
Right.
And so it's layers of that.
I've had, I trained in gymnastics starting from the time I was a very young child. And then, I was a gymnast for many, many, many years. And then I was a dancer. And I always had this ability to either flip really high or leap really high. Like, it's just odd. I get this kind of bizarre kind of airtime. And it was when I was diving deep into the 60, I was like, I think this is my relationship to the 60th gene key that has something to do with this.
Yeah. Being able to kind of make quantum leaps.
Yes. Yeah. And I've heard you talk about karma before, that it's that we're misguided in thinking that there's personal karma. And that that sort of speaks to an attachment to a like a 3D identity structure or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I that's might be one of the statements that I might kind of retract, because
Great. Set the record
because,
straight.
well, only just because, again, when you say something like that or write something like that, it's like it's real and it's not real. You know, it's so I kind of wish I hadn't said that, because there's a truth, you know, to, yes, there's some personal strand that connects everything, but then the point I was trying to make is that everything is interconnected, you know, in this massive interdependence. So that's what people mostly miss. This is why, like, we kind of don't often see the deeper reasons behind things. And this is that notion of justice and injustice. Like, someone that is really evil or seems to be really evil, and then they have a really good, nice fortune life, and they never get caught, you know, and then they die, you know, peaceful or relatively. And you think, well, that's not fair, you know, and then this person over there has the opposite, really kind, loving, and all these bad things happen. But what we don't see is we don't see the life of the soul, you know? And so we don't see most of that person's being and most of what is actually going on under the surface.
Right.
And that's where karma kind of operates. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a big, mysterious subject. You know, it's the sort of thing you need to sort of take magic mushrooms and then discuss it.
Anytime, Richard. I'd love to take mushrooms with you.
That's off the record, by the way.
I'm fond of saying it makes sense on some dimension. Like when I'm not understanding it from my 3D monkey mind, I trust it's all making sense from a much larger meta eternal perspective that I'm not aware of having access to as of yet. Yeah.
I mean, in a way, every gene key is like that, right? And the same with in the Dream Ark, every one of those codes interpreted into creatures contains the same information, but it's encoded in a symbolic, iconic, right brain way. But the same wisdom can be drawn from it. You know, it's just coming from a different place. So the Dream Ark is about working out your right brain. It's like, you know, I was saying the other day to someone, like, it's like we've spent so much of our lives building up the muscles on one side of our body. You know, so we're like all kind of contorted. We're like massive left side muscles and tiny little wimpy right ones for most people anyway. Probably not so much you, but then, you know, building up that right muscle is what the Dream Ark's about. Imagination, child nature, looking at something through the eyes of a child, being playful, working with your hands, doing things that are unexpected, stretching yourself beyond your normal comfort zones deliberately, working it, feeling yourself into your dream life, you know, so that you start to see the unbroken strand between the dream life and the waking life. And the awareness starts to kind of open up those doors between, you know, all those, that whole right side of our brain that grasps things holistically and symbolically, you know, that it's truth, it's sort of knowledge, well, it's wisdom in a way through revelation, you know, rather than through learning. You know, it's like you don't have to go out and get it, it's already in there waiting to come out. It's a completely opposite way of learning. You know, in our schools, we do all one-sided. We don't do any learning that's revelation, do we? You know, so it's like we've learned all this, a whole methodology that's kind of only one thing. Like science is like that. It's like only one way. But then mysticism is, there's a whole other way. You can learn things in a different way. You can learn them by remembering them. And you can learn them instantly rather than having to go through long processes. You know, so you know, in the Dream Ark, I spend some time describing the power of dreams and how our dream life, you know, even in our dream life, even when we're awake, is very rich. You know, it's like that hippo's fertilizing. But if we don't pay any attention to it, then it just completely misses us. So it's like a huge percentage of our being is not being accessed most of the day or the night.